So this video is going to be looking at the opening guitar parts for Hell's Bells for both Angus and Malcolm. And in the previous video I did, the TNT video, I spoke about how to me the key to AC/DC and the sound they get and the kind of the way the riff makes you want to move is that a lot of the riffs are played off the beat. So if you were to count the riff, if you were to sort of do the time for the Hell's Bells and you were counting like that, 1, 2, 3, 4, the riff goes ba 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 da da. Most of those are off the beat, and in fact even the first note of the riff, which is the open A, so when you play, when you first play that at the beginning of the song, that open A is on the beat, but from there on in it's off the beat as you come round to the beginning of each sequence. And I think that's very important for kind of getting the feel for the AC/DC song. So let's have a quick rattle through the riff. This is how it is played. So that's the complete sequence. Now, there's also the issue of the picking here, because I find it works best if you're mainly using downstrokes. But when you come down from that note there, through this little mini bar, which we'll have a look at in a second, that D string is played with an up pick on both of the two bits where you do that pattern. But we'll talk about that when we actually get to the actual riff itself. So, it starts on the open A string, includes the 7th fret of the D string, which is also an A, that's an octave, and then I use my pinky for the 9th fret of the G string, which is an E note. Which was slightly out of tune. So, to play it slowly, we're going to go open. So the first 3 notes are open A, 9th fret of the G, open A. So you don't play the middle D string for that part of the sequence, so it starts off A, B, A. Then you take your pinky off here, and you're going to do what's called a little mini bar. So you're putting your finger here, your first finger across the 2 strings, the D string and the G string, on the 7th fret. Now I'm playing that, the note on the G string, which is a D, I'm playing that with the down pick, but then I'm bringing my pick down towards the A string across the D string with an upstroke. So I'm pulling up on that one, and then downstroke for the A. So this part of the riff goes. Now to me, that's the key note in this part of the riff. That note to me sounds like it's being held ever so slightly longer, and it kind of rings out. It's the note that's most noticeable in the riff. So let you slightly pause before you do that little thing. Very slightly. Whether or not it's measurable or it just sounds like that, I'm not sure, but certainly that's to me how it sounds. So you're playing the G string with a downstroke, the D string with an upstroke, and then the open A again with a downstroke. Then you slide this mini bar down to the 5th fret and play the same pattern. So it goes. And I use the same picking, so downstroke on the G string, upstroke on the D string, downstroke on the open A. And when you finish with that bit, you then slide your finger back up to the 7th fret and do another mini bar. So just across the D and the G string with the A string open. So playing it slowly, the whole thing goes like this. And then at the end of the sequence, you've done your. You do 2 open A's. Da 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 da, and again that. The second one is off the beat, so that's when you start playing an off the beat open A. And then you repeat the sequence most of the way through, so you're going to go, so open A, G, open A, and then G string, D string, open A, G string, D string, open A. Now I saw somebody on, a guy from Justin Guitar suggested that this next note should be played with your pinky, which sounds quite good. You could slide this finger up to here, but you're only going to be playing the G string note at this point. before you go down to this bit where you go. And it seemed to me actually what he was suggesting was that if you play this with your pinky, your finger's kind of better positioned for going down rather than bringing your whole finger up here and then having to make that slide down to the 3rd fret of the A string when you do this last sequence. So the second time through goes. And you finish it with the open A ringing out again, and hitting that open A is the beginning of the next sequence, which is then that open A is off the beat. So first bit the same, open A, G string, open A, this mini bar on the 7th fret, down pick on the G string, up pick on the D string, down pick on the open A, slide it down to the 5th fret, down pick on the G string, up pick on the D string, open A, and then play this note with your pinky, and then you come down to the 3rd fret of the A string and the 5th fret of the D string. You play them together, then you slide your first finger down from the 3rd fret to the 2nd fret, so you play those two together with downstrokes, quite controlled. But with all things AC/DC, you've got quite a heavy pick here, because a lot of the sound that AC/DC get from their guitars is not heavy distortion. It's certainly not heavy metal distortion. It's not a lot of gain. It's a hard pick technique. So when I do it on my Cubase setting, I have the guitar set to crunch, which is the minimum amount of kind of added distortion you can have on the sound that you get from Cubase. And you do the two together. But when you get to the A string, be sure to only play the open string. So take the pressure off here, because you don't want it, you don't want that to sound, you don't want a chord, it's just an open A string. Now when I first learnt this song, I used to play it like this, which is a lot easier to manage. So if you imagine a C chord here like this, these two notes are a C chord, and then just the 2nd fret and an open D string as part of a G chord, which is where this is what you are essentially doing. You're playing a C chord and a G chord, because that's a C bar chord with a C and a G. But if you do a B and a G, that's a G chord. So that's kind of what you're doing there. So if you find that quite hard, that is, to me, is the hardest part of this opening riff, because you need to get your hand down here quite quickly. You don't want a lot of slide or anything like that. You've got to kind of think about what you're doing with your pinky here if you choose to play it that way. My way of playing up until watching Justin's guitar was just to slide up to here, and then it's a big reach down. That works all right, but I think that is how they play it on the record. So whole sequence goes. You see, I just did that. I just sent my finger up to there. And it's very distinctly single notes until you get to that bit where you are playing, I suppose what you technically call a power chord of sorts. Okay? So on the record, Angus Young plays that through once. And if you listen to the record, you can hear Angus Young's guitar part by taking your left earphone out, because it all comes out the right side. And a lot of AC/DC songs, Angus is all the way over on one side of the sound and Malcolm's all the way on the other. So Malcolm's guitar is on the left-hand side and Angus's guitar is on the right-hand side. And he plays that riff through once. At the end of that riff, when he goes, Malcolm joins in, just playing that riff, and then holds an A chord. So he does play a chord for that part, whilst Angus is playing the rest of the riff. So if you were to count it in and you come in, and at this point he hits an A chord at the same time as Angus is hitting that open A string to come back up into the riff. So he would go, hits it again, does that run again, hits the riff, the chord, now on that third time through you can hear the bass comes in, which is just playing this note. And the bass holds that A, but if you listen with your headphones, you can hear that at this point you can start to hear the riff coming out the left-hand side, which suggests to me that Malcolm started playing it. And I think the main difference between how Angus plays the riff and how Malcolm plays the riff, the way I hear it, especially as you get into the full band when the drums come in and the bass is playing, is that he's not so clean on this part of the riff. To me, it sounds like he's playing a little kind of mini chord here. So he's going. So he hits across that. So the opening bit's the same. But instead of just playing one note here, it sounds to me like he's hitting both these notes. Because you can hear a slight ringing out at that point in the riff to me. So when he hits the 2, he then plays it the way Angus does, which is... So he's playing both notes for the first, instead of just the G note, and then picking the D. So I would play down on those 2 strings, but pick up on the D string to come down to the open A, hit that mini bar on the 5th fret, and back to the 7th fret. If you're playing Malcolm's part, you need to get from here down to here to finish the riff off. Okay, so that's the intro. So what I'll do is first of all I'll play along with a backing track with just the Angus part playing, and then I'll play along to a backing track with the for the Malcolm part as well. So here's the opening riff with a 4 count with on a hi-hat. That's Malcolm's part coming in. Bass drum. Bass part coming in. And then in with the whole band. Now doing that again, but this time with Malcolm's part. Obviously it comes in with Angus just on the guitar on his own at the beginning. Playing the run and the chord. And then come in with the bass. That. Now the only variation of this whole thing is right before you come out of the introductory riff and into the kind of pre-verse part of the song, they change to a G and a D chord right at the end. So both of them do a sequence that goes. And at this point into a G. Now an AC/DC G is played like this with a 2nd finger on the bottom string. That string going across the A string mutes it. And then you've got D string, G string open, and then 3rd fret of the B string and the G string. And that means that what you're playing there is effectively a power chord. There's no major third. A power chord on G is just a G and a D. Well, by muting this, if you play an ordinary G with your finger on the 2nd fret there, that's the major third of the chord, the B. But by using this finger here, you're effectively getting this sound, which is a very full Now I hear a lot of people I see a lot of people playing a D like this, which is a D power chord, which is just the D string, an A, another D, and not putting this finger on, which is maybe how they do it. But if I was playing it, I have to say, to me, it's more a case of how you're plucking it. So it's like you're playing a... So I would finger a G chord, but I would probably just play the 3 strings here. You don't want to... I mean, you can play the full D chord, and it's not going to have a particularly large effect on the sound, but you're definitely, when you're playing AC/DC, you're striking the thicker strings of the guitar to emphasize the lower notes to give it that fuller sound. So I wouldn't worry too much about not putting your finger on the 2nd fret here, but I certainly would be playing hard, although I said with that hard pick technique where you're good forceful sound, very much how Malcolm Young gets his sound. I think he plays with quite a clean sound, but just really getting a lot of the distortion by hitting the strings hard. So that's the opening sequence. Now, I'd just like to point out that on my recording here, I've actually got one too many sequences of just Angus. So I played more sequences of Malcolm than you would on the record. It's one of Angus. Malcolm joins in with the... on the 2nd. They play that together. 2nd riff, 3rd riff. Bass joins in with a... on the 4th, and just does basically what Malcolm's part is, which is does that little run and then plays a single note. But at this point, Malcolm is definitely playing that riff. But like I say, to me, it sounds like he's playing a more of a on that note, and then just picking the D. So that he's not playing just the G string on its own; he's playing the G string and the D string together. So that is a video for the opening riff of Hell's Bells.